Welcome to Enlightened Game with Slim Sir, as he takes the lessons he learned from the streets, commonly known as the game, and applies them to everyday life, helping everyday people win the game of life, focusing on relationships, money, and the winner's lifestyle. This podcast will turn any chump into a champ. So if you're ready, let the game begin. And now, your host, the most valuable player himself, Slim Sir.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Enlightened Game. I am your host, Slim Sir, and this is my audio notebook. Okay, last episode we talked about the ism and what that means, and a quick rundown of what the ism is. The ism, by definition, is a method of doing things. When we apply this method to our lives, it makes us gentlemen and ladies. Okay? This method is a method of principle and rules. So in order to practice the ism, you're living your life by principles and rules. And when you are practicing these principles and rules, you are automatically considered and qualified and certified to be a gentleman and a lady. Now, why is this important? Number one, is important, like we discussed before, because the ism begins with how you see and feel about yourself. See, because how you see and feel about yourself will determine your abilities. If you see yourself as weak and you feel depressed and down, your abilities are limited. And your abilities control your destiny. Your abilities determine your destiny. So if you want to change your destiny, you have to change your behavior. In order to change your behavior, you have to change how you see and feel about yourself. And that's why the ism is so important. Because the ism gives you a new self-image and feeling about yourself. What is that self-image? That self-image is that of a gentleman or a lady. Now, when we look at ourselves as a community, when we look at ourselves as just black people or minorities, we don't necessarily see ladies and gentlemen. Do you know why? Because this picture is not marketed to us. The pictures that are marketed to us is that we are low-level pimps, hustlers, hoes, murderers, jackboys, drug dealers, drug addicts, you name it, everything bad, but we never see ourselves in a positive light. Why is this important? Because if you're in the game, right, in the street game, whatever game you're playing, and you don't see yourself as a gentleman or lady, your attitude is going to be negative, and therefore your actions are going to be negative, and therefore the circumstances and results that you produce are going to be negative. And so we look at our community, we look at our environment, and it's highly negative. That's because of our activities and behaviors, and ultimately because of how we see ourselves. So the ism changes all of that. When you start practicing the ism, you start seeing yourself as a gentleman, and you start feeling good, you start feeling like a gentleman, you start behaving like a gentleman, then there are certain things that you will and will not do. And so if you're in any game, once you conduct yourself as a lady or a gentleman, what you're doing is securing your future, securing your success in whatever field or industry that you're in. Because people, if you give a person the option between choosing a clean glass of water or a dirty glass of water, they're naturally going to choose the clean glass of water. And this is the same perspective of the ism. When you practice the ism, live by the principles and the rules of the ism, you become that clean glass of water, right? And it makes it easy for people to choose you. So that's all I'm saying to you. When you practice the ism, you become attractive. Okay? Now, what does it mean to practice the ism? The ism really is a principle. The way I teach it, it is a principle. And that principle is principles over people and people over things. The value that we put in principles, the value that we put in rules, in structure, is unmeasurable. We look at principles the same way that a religious person looks at the spirit of God. You see, the religious people refer to it as a spirit, right? I personally don't understand the concept of spirit, but I do understand that the principle of the reality of a principle. So how I put it in my mind is that God is good, right? If God is good and good is a principle, then that's the spirit. That's the meaning of spirit. So I define spirit as principle. And that's the perspective of a player, a gentleman, a lady. Yes, we love people, but above people we put principles. We live our life by principles. The principle of being a gentleman, the principle of being a lady is, in our society right now, the perception is that in order for you to be valuable, you have to be a real nigga. You got to be a dope boy. You got to be, sipping lean and popping perks and smoking weed and drinking alcohol. But in the reality of things, that has little to no value. But we're marketed that self-image. What I'm saying to you is the ism, no matter how you apply it, no matter what industry that you're in, will guarantee that you see yourself in a higher light, but also that other people see you in a higher light from a different perspective, a higher perspective. Respect you more when you carry yourself like a gentleman, when you carry yourself like a lady. How do you carry yourself like a gentleman or a lady? The very first principle of the the very first rule of the ism, as I teach it, is good hygiene. Good hygiene, man. Take a shower, brush your teeth, make sure you're groomed, make sure your hair is cut, combed, and your clothes are clean and fresh and pressed. Because we don't like to admit the fact that people do judge a book by its cover, but that's the reality. And people will see you before they hear you. I want you to think about that, right? When people see you, they automatically make an assumption. They make a judgment of you. You could be the nicest person in the world. You could be the richest person in the world. But if you're looking like a bum and your hygiene is poor, you're not going to really attract people. Okay? So part of the biggest part of being a gentleman, the first part of being a gentleman or a lady is to practice good hygiene. If you only have one pair of clothes or a few pair of clothes, that's okay. Just make sure they're clean and they're pressed, okay? And present yourself in a gentlemanly way. If all you have is a t-shirt and some jeans and some sneakers, make sure that you clean your sneakers. Make sure that your jeans are clean. Make sure that your t-shirt is clean, washed, and pressed, and you're looking as crisp as you can. Practice good hygiene. That's the first rule of being a gentleman or being a lady. The second rule is good morals. Good morals. Now remember, we said that a gentleman or a lady lives by principles, okay? And they put these principles above people. So if you have to make a hard decision between two friends, right? And one of your friends were, your best friend was clearly in the wrong and another friend was right. You would have to choose, you would have to make the moral decision and go with, the friend that was right and judge your friend that was wrong and, tell them and check them and correct them that they were wrong. And what I'm basically saying is that we don't play favorites. We're not respecters of people's personalities. We're respecters of principle. And if you carry out principle, then we respect you. If you don't carry out principle and live by morals, then, it's kind of hard to respect you as a gentleman or as a lady. So to be considered a lady, you have to, or considered a gentleman, you have to live by principles. You have to practice good hygiene, right? You have to have morals in your life, have a clear definition between right and wrong, things that you will do and things that you will not, absolutely not do. And these are character traits of real gentlemen and real ladies, right? So no matter what industry that you're in, no matter what field of endeavor that you're in, no matter what level of the game that you're playing, these rules will help you to become a gentleman and be perceived as a gentleman by other people, so that you are welcoming to do business with, right? If you're looking dirty and your morals are are not in order, who wants to do business with you? This is a very practical system of living. And the third rule of the ism is good manners. When you deal with people, it is not hard to say, yes, sir, no, sir, thank you, please, excuse me, God bless you. These are little etiquettes that keep society in order. Now, if you want to become successful in any level of the game that you're playing, it only makes sense to follow these three rules: good hygiene, good morals, and good manners. Now think about the opposite of that and ask yourself, would you like to deal with someone like that? Someone who didn't practice good hygiene. They were stink and dirty. Their clothes were looking messed up, right? They had no principles and morals about them, and they had bad manners. Would you want to deal with that kind of person? The answer is unequivocally no. No, you wouldn't want to deal with that person. But you would want to deal with a person who practiced good hygiene, good morals, and good manners. Now, if you put those two people up side by side and you had a choice to choose which one to deal with, you would always choose the one that was practicing the ism. So in the game, we always want a female to choose us. Well, in the game of life, if we want opportunities to choose us, we should practice the ism. We should make ourselves inviting. We should invite opportunities and good, opportunities into our lives. And how we do that is by practicing good hygiene. Nobody will want to deal with you if you stink and funky. You know what I'm saying? But if you clean and fresh and looking good and smelling good, right? You become attractive. And then when you're dealing with people, if they know you're a man or a woman of principles and that you won't break these principles, you will stand on these principles, they're more likely to deal with you. And if your manners are impeccable, you almost make yourself irresistible. They have to deal with you because you practice good hygiene, good morals, and good manners. That is the ism. No matter what level of the game you're playing, if you practice these principles, you will be successful. You will become attractive. People will want to deal with you, and business and success and prosperity will be easy for you. I want you to think about that. No one wants to deal with someone who is bad manners, who has no principles and morals in their life, and they're not even hygienically clean, Anyway, my time is almost up. So what I'm going to ask you to do, if you enjoyed this podcast, click the thumbs up, share this podcast with everybody that you know on your social media. Send it as a message, text message, or message on IG, Facebook, repost it. Get the message out that the ism is the way of success. The ism is the way of being a gentleman and being a lady. And when you conduct yourself as a gentleman and a lady, success is guaranteed. People will choose you because they want to choose what is right and best for themselves. Anyway, thank you for listening. Peace.